Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I guess we should begin. It's 4:35. If someone is late, they can join later. The main speakers are here. We have some noises. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear members of the session. Finally, it's Friday. We are moving closer towards the finish. But we still have one interesting topic to discuss. It is related to investment attraction. Do you hear me well? It seems like everything is all right. Over the last year, we got used to the fact that funding is something that banks should provide. And except for banks, we cannot think about anything else. That's our financial system and our mentality. Indeed, the banking market is strengthening, especially over the recent years, over the last 5 years, thanks to the active investment enthusiasm, and non-banking funding are gaining significance. Currently, we face a number of large challenges in the global economy in the country and within our banking and credit system also. Today we are going to speak about the tools, alternative tools of funding that can be interesting for enterprises, for the state, and for private investors. These instruments, especially developing and involving and working on the closed-end funds. The tools and instruments that closed funds provide can be recombined in different manners. It was fairly mentioned that traditionally the Russian business was funded through banks. And the stock market was suited better for brokers, for immediate profit and immediate loss. Over the last 2 years, the situation has changed rapidly and unexpectedly. What is Russian stock market right now? It's over 32 million accounts established. Even if we think that, if we consider even the accounts that already have funds on it, it's over 10 million accounts. And it's one of the largest stock markets in the world. Generally, our accounts are worth over 12 trillion rubles. And these are the amounts that can be invested. We are witnessing that securities are also getting more popular. Over 400 security items were released, and this year we are going to reach the number of 600. Private investors are actively buying securities, especially of middle companies, because they offer the most profitable conditions than banking deposits, for example. Logically, we can think that the key interest rate can become 17% this year. Then the business will face a lot of challenges. Securities have certain advantages. If you offer the 18 or 19% interest rate, the investors can eventually gain 10 to 11%, which is more profitable than the bank loan, especially if you combine these tools with other one. Loan stocks are suppressed by the key interest rate, but we actually expected that the effect wouldn't be that severe. But IPOM are the tools that investors also use. And it increases the attractiveness of the business. We have a gold mining company that proved the effectiveness of this kind of approach. Next year, the number of IPO will reach 30 or 40. IPOs are preferred by small and medium companies with a profit of 5 to 15 billion rubles a year. And it is popular for markets which lack investors. I guess it is a long-term tendency, and it will stay with us, and I guess that investors will keep using it, and I guess that we may also face some puffed interest rates, but still businesses will and investors will keep looking for additional sorts of funding. Before the conference, we did a little opinion poll. We asked 1,000 investors as our respondents. We asked about the capacities, and they say that 90% of them use investment accounts. I don't want to share the entire results of the opinion poll, but I would just want to give you a general overview. Recently, Astra company entered the market. They are ready to keep buying loan stock. Investors on the market, both private and national, are interested in this kind of assets. Land banks are normally a guarantee for investors, but investors consider not only loans from such guaranteed banks, but also consider additional sources of funding. The stock market unexpectedly showed low interest to certain industries. Over the last 6 months, oil and gas, bank and retails are the leading industries. And only raw material industries became the leading industry in this field, and the retails attracted only 10% of the investors. Probably the demand for this kind of sources will be declining. And such budgetary shoulder will keep shortening. And even though the existing tools out there are still profitable, but the demand for them is declining nevertheless. Investors are realistic about American stock market, where you can easily invest in Boeing or another respected company, and Russian defense companies are not presented in the market, and I don't think that they will be able to and will be eager to pay interests. But agricultural companies and IT companies are welcoming all the possible investors. There are many formats of participation. There are closed-end funds and market closed-end funds, stock loans, pre-IPOs and IPOs. When it comes to pre-IPOs, you place securities for marketing at a limited circle of people. Sometimes it's a few dozens or a few hundreds of people. They are not marketed publicly. The cost is not high, about 200 or 300 million rubles. The IPO is provided 1-year term, so the business can escalate based on this money inflows. Russian companies prefer IPOs, but they are not very enthusiastic about releasing them because Indian and American companies still pioneered in this area. Now Russian companies also start to offer this kind of tool, but I guess that over the years Russia will get increasing number of such companies. Now we are working on 3 deals that have nearly been signed. So pre-IPO can also be used by investors if the business hasn't yet grown up enough to trade their securities publicly, shares publicly. In our policy, we rely on the concept that we are growing an emittent that will be providing these services independently. We provide collective counterpart funding, closed-end funds, pre-IPOs and IPOs to satisfy the needs of the companies in cash. I guess that closed-end fund is an underestimated tool. Usually it is used as a packaged instrument, but market actors are changing their attitude to the closed end. Over the year, they are going to attract 350 to 500 billion rubles in 2023, but I still think even though this figure is not significant, it is still a positive dynamics. And most of the closed-end funds will be comprised by housing facilities, air transportation, and logistic premises such as warehouses. You can expect very profitable conditions there because they gave over 18% interest rate. Closed-end can include long-term projects. You can start paying interest within 6 months. You either provide growth or start paying interest. Closed-end is very good for developing and promising enterprises with a planning horizon over 5 years. It's also good for infrastructural projects, and to a certain extent, infrastructural projects are even more interesting because they provide good prospects for the business. If you need to use an IPO, you need to involve analysts and make an audit. You need to provide efficient level of transparency. But if you use the closed-end fund, you have limited obligations in terms of your profitability statements.
But for Russian market, for Russian business that hasn't grown to publicity yet, it's not always convenient. And there are some benefits as well. But anyway, the profit tax is paid only when the profit is taken out. So, as well in closed-end fund, the control of the control is preserved, and no one should create any boards of directors and so on. And only additional investors can be attracted only if it's necessary. And there is a whole list of different advantages. But where advantages, there are also disadvantages, and closed-end funds have low liquidity, so the demand is a bit low from active investors, and Russian investor doesn't usually think in those terms, in that terminology. But we expect that the technology, the approach is going to change a bit with time, but nowadays it's a perspective anyway, and everything can change dramatically if we follow that. Closed-end fund has some losses in infrastructure when an analyst, an auditor are attracted, plus infrastructure investments and so on, from about up to 5% of profit are spent on these losses, these expenditures. So we should take it into account as well. So but these disadvantages are quite expected. They are not negative. They're quite logical. And the main task of closed-end fund, if they are market closed-end funds, not packaging, so market investors look at those funds, and that's the absolute profit, clear profit that person can make, maybe not in the first 1 up to 3 years, but anyway, income can be calculated up to annual profit, and it's quite clear that closed-end fund competes with banking accounts, for example, or some other ways that when people used to put their money, to keep their money in. So, and here we're talking about some some interest rate about up to 2 or 3%, and we're also talking about benchmarks. So here, stock offices are also taken into account because stability and profit can be sought by closed-end fund when renting is applied, for example, because it's sold quite well and investors are ready to buy that, and that infrastructure of profit consists of 2 elements. That's the retail cost and plus analog benefits and dividends. And this is a low liquidity here, and so if they don't see any results, the investors get really upset because all active accounts can be calculated and estimated in different ways. So it happens sometimes when a quite small company has sold its share package and got a great estimation, and then that re-estimation went on, even though the situation hasn't changed. So we compare risks and profit because the conservative tools are quite on demand nowadays, and the share of obligations and different dividends have grown. And an investor wouldn't like to have anything too risky because they want to understand some long-term index where those actives go, and regulatory or tax benefits are taken into account when they choose a company. But anyway, they look at them as well. And if there are some problems of getting different state dotation, they also consider that. And fund liquidity is also important. For example, in Moscow Stock Exchange Company, it's taken into account, and that's the way to attract other investors as well. And another important point is when investors work with closed-end funds, they don't work with you as a company or a person, but some department, State Department, they work with the managing company who interact with the client and is responsible for the client. So the reputation of that managing company and the presence of client base plays a really great role. Talking about some technical moments, there are not many people who know how to manage that. There is a managing company, trust company, who make decisions on the property of closed-end funds quite freely, but in some cases in a quite limited way. So when there is closed-end fund property, we recommend to create some investigation committee where they can control all decisions that are made, because that lowers some risks. And furthermore, having other additional shares that also provide some risks, and we should pay attention to such issues. And of course, closed-end funds are regulated by a Russian bank, and there's also depository that doesn't let the interest get carried away, and there are also some estimators and analysts who provide their feedback. So, yeah, when we talk about complete publicity, that's not that strict here. Talking about managing companies, I've already talked about that, but please pay attention to their experience, how many years they are on market, and some successful cases that they have in their experience, because those companies that have some successful markets, successful cases of launching closed-end funds, it doesn't mean that they will do the same quite successfully with other cases. So, and any financial business is trust of those who create, who build closed-end funds, and from those who create those key points of this managing company. So, I'm open to any questions and ready to talk about any of those tools. So thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Kochetkov. Yeah, probably we're going to listen to all of our speakers, and then we'll have a section dedicated to answering the questions from the audience. Thanks a lot, and I would like to give the floor to the head of Regional Alpha Bank, Mr. Radi Vadimovich. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm really glad to greet you all here on this really significant event. So here, I'm not going to give you any report, but just to talk on Alpha Group and on Alpha Bank that is a part of Alpha Group, and Alpha Group consists of several companies. If we look at Alpha Group, that's a classical tool of attracting and positioning investitions, and we are working closely with companies that are members of our Alpha Group, and they consider different alternative ways of positioning different tools. And the main topic of today is closed-end fund, and I will give you the floor to our employee, Guzela Rashimova, the representative of our capital department. My name is Guzel Rashidovna. I represent the managing capital company. Yesterday we had our birthday. We turned 31. And so everything has already been said here, but I will cover main aspects of structuring business and tax optimization of closed-end funds and structuring of different active shares and assets. So how can I switch the presentation? Yeah, should use the big button here. So the market of closed-end fund in Russia is nowadays increasing dramatically, and this inflow that has happened for the past 5 years, we have about more than 3 billion rubles, and more than 1,800 funds have been created, and more than 179 billions of rubles have been structured, and the amount of closed-end funds have been structured and attracted. So we see this really active growth. And why do we need closed-end funds? All clients who are proposed with structuring and packaging their business into closed-end funds, they all like this ideal. It's necessary for investitions, for business, for development. That's where we started. Why do we need to structure all assets? To get confidentiality, of course. That was one of the reasons noted. And handing them over as heritage, to turn all assets into special tax mode. It doesn't mean that you try to hide from them, but we're working in this special tax mode here. And this closed-end fund scheme is quite complicated, and packaging, registration in central bank, and estimation, agreeing of those special depositoriums and the work of all evaluators takes about this all take about 1 to 2 months. What can be packed there? Any different types of properties, real estate, and anything else, some valuable documents, property rights, different artworks, or censorship and authorized anything. The industry is quite evolving, and the main infrastructure of this fund and main members have already been mentioned, as well as the high price of this structure. But this structure protects investors, and this is a really efficient way of packaging business. So what does closed-end fund? There's the opportunity to get regular profit, special tax mode, and when your business and assets are packed in closed-end fund, no matter how long it takes, up to 15 years or anything, you are in this tax system. So even when you paid back completely or just partially, while you are in this closed-end fund, you can count on annual or any quarter where you have been paying those taxes. So you are protected from internal and external taxes. I will show that a bit later. That's as well. Plus, it's we're talking about heritage here when we can hand in your funds. So how do we realize and make this moment real? How to get this investment profit? The whole procedure about purchasing and selling, you can take a share of this closed-end fund and pay the tax. Giving or giving the rules of heritage, there is a special agreement of giving and the right of handing over shares. So the one who inherits this closed-end fund gets those shares. So plus, there are some advantages of federal mode. Closed-end fund lets invest profit without increasing of the tax, and increase the value, so it can be paid back quite easily. There are some profits get into the fund, and all different types of income can be paid, and they are not obliged with any taxes. So the function of a tax agent are used for those who hold shares, and the advantage of closed-end fund and special tax mode are as follows. On this slide, there are companies, limited liability companies, and individual entrepreneurs. So in any tax system, the profit tax is not used, he is not applied. And there are no limits of this tax. And talking about some legal risks or something like that, there is this legal protection because the fund is closed. So what is confidentiality of closed-end funds? Eager and or EGRU are used here when you and they have your last name, for example. So when you provide this information about yourself, there is a combined closed fund, and the number might be 56 or 79 when you're registered there. And when you leave closed-end fund, only after that your information will be available. So it's suitable for state workers according to the federal law 79, or those businessmen who are afraid of getting into lists with sanctioned companies, or who would like to kind of hide from anybody's eyes. So this is quite hidden, confidential, and packed. So they used to be some tax bases that do not publish their results, and within closed-end funds, the results are so they are consolidated. So, for example, about if we're talking about different expenses and profits, they are about 200 or 300 simultaneously. The profit is not consolidated, and thanks to closed-end funds, this tax base was lowered up to 100 units. It's also quite important to pay attention to family business, and there is a problem of inheritance. So closed-end funds are interesting for high net clients who have a really big business which works, but we can never guarantee or predict the development of some particular events. One of the bright examples, one of our closed-end funds last year, one of the proprietors of our closed-end funds passed away, sadly, one of the talented businessmen. And as it said, a talented person is talented everywhere. And he had a big family and children. But unfortunately, when closed-end fund proprietor passes away, the following happens: the business stops while his descendants take over. But our client was lucky; he packed his business into closed-end fund. That was a hotel business, and his inheritance were solving some problems for about a year and a half, but his closed-end fund didn't stop functioning, and it was making money, kept making money. And 1 year and a half later, they finally met some agreement, and shares were distributed between his descendants, but the business had never stopped functioning, and that's quite essential. So what does closed-end fund do? Shares are inherited, and it's possible to limit the selling assets until until the descendants take over. So when there are some disputes, those who inherit shares, but they are trying to solve their issues and questions, their shares influence and affect negatively the business. But when there is finally a person who inherited business and they are still in closed-end fund, they don't pay any taxes. So the main parameters of creating closed-end funds for our company, for Alpha Capital, that's the investment of 300 million rubles. But our previous speaker said that, yes, the architecture of such funds is quite expensive, but it's quite sensible to look at this minimal sum of 300 million rubles, and the creation takes less than 1 month. So minimal period of having this fund is about 3 years, and the benefit is from 1%, but it all can be regulated. And I'm going to skip the conditions of personal usage of such funds, but the main structure is that it takes time and effort to register everything and form this fund, and the load is from 1% annually for creating that. So how are the assets handed in? There are no limits for the types of property which can be handed over into this structure. The only limitation is the absence of any burden of that property, and we also need to understand what infrastructure is handed over. So we need to understand it, evaluate it on the market. How to stop closed-end fund? All of these procedures are agreed beforehand, and all disputable moments cannot even be there. So the models of closed-end fund, that's direct exit of having the business, venturing investitions and pre-IPO, the formation of holding structures, and switching the assets as well, creating funds for family capital structure and structured deals. Models of developing funds, that's multi-story buildings, cottage village construction, and commercial construction as well, providing some renting, and family, and handing over to a family bank. So the Federal Law 214 complies greatly with closed-end funds, so it's one of the most popular structures, which is interesting for our clients, and all of those stages have been experienced by us. So, and handing over the property, real estate property, in closed-end funds through LLC have undergone some differences, some changes, but it's become quite comfortable. So handing over the properties, when the beneficiary becomes the shareholder, only shares are transferred. Consolidation of business in closed-end funds, all of those schemes are defined and increase in dividends in the fund with the aim of investment gives this economical profit as well. So it gives the benefit to business propriety for tax optimization. So where can we move dividends in closed-end fund? New business can be developed or opened. Some valuable documents, papers can be invested in as well. And also, talking about the transaction of assets, we accompany the whole process through all the stages and all the facts of closed-end funds that we've created and structured. The assets had this clear price of 110 billion, and about 300 clients invested into our closed-end funds. And closed-end funds of real estate were about 40 billion, and 15 experts monitor and accompany all this work in 15 regions. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Guzel. We were talking about these facts. We will speak about these tools later and from the point of view of investors and companies and where we can implement this. And I would like to give the floor to the financial atelier of Bjorn. So can you just give him the microphone? Or the floor to Georgi Krasilnikov. The topic is about obligations. Just to look, widely on the situation, my name is Georgi Krasilnikov. I have a special mechanisms that we can work with. We have a pretty simple approach and tool. And I will speak to you just from the point of view of cases and examples. So let's just leave this topic. So what is obligation? Obligation is something that started from the vexel. So we had 47 outcomes, and we had 8.5%. So for the company to issue the obligations, there should be very important criteria. The two most important: the company should exist not less than 3 years. Is it difficult condition to implement? No, it's not. It's just medium business. With our experience, not the companies went not for money or obligations, but they went to find something else. So yeah, we understand with the financing, marketing. If the company issues their activity out of Moscow region, one of the first emittents was the company of the fitness clubs, Bright Fit. Mr. Romanov, he is the head of these clubs, and he said he was tired of going to some performances, interviews. He was asked by everyone to give an interview to explain how it happened. So it's like a free ad. And all the activities that you do for the first time, that would be a very distinguished activity. Can you so next, status. Not every company can issue an applications. So if we have the colleagues with the loan stock, it's pretty difficult. They have to take 9 months. So it's like and there are special procedures on to prepare the investment documents, the memorandums. I'm not going to go in details. What about safety and efficiency? We have a lot of cases that started before last year, and they had different conditions of. They have different interesting rates. If the loan stock was with the income of 13%, so the company paid 13% still. If you compare the banking loans, to pay the loan monthly is one story. When the company pays by the end of the issue of the valuable papers, it's for the usage of some loan resources. It's an absolutely different story. So the money are kept in business, so you can use them more times, and the income of the company will be absolutely different. And what about subsidies? So our colleagues mentioned that there are different subsidies. I would like just to tell a little details. How much does it cost to take everything that I mentioned? Of course, I tell to everyone that loan stock are the most expensive opportunity. This is the list of projects. Not all of them, actually. If you look at the west, you can see some companies on the eastern, on some salt on Brighton feed companies. The main question from the company is, you know what? Who will buy us? We're not so large. We're manufacturing chairs. Who can be needed in chairs? But nobody knows us. What do you think? What's the minimum search for investors was? 6 minutes. 6 minutes, you know? So this is, it's not a very big issue up to 6 million rubles. You know, it looks like you marry successfully. So nobody should be perfect. So we are like in a family relations, you know, to work all together to get good results. Nobody will work for everyone. So you can see the number of big numbers of closed-end funds. So with the absolutely different amounts of money. This is the top 2 popular questions. Why issuer borrows with a high rates, and why issuer gives a very small rate? Why he is greedy, I would say. Ah, you raised your hand. It's you. No, I said hi to you. All right. So we need to require the interest. So I'm telling you, you need to describe your ideal business system, and then we will fit it with the reality. This is the way that we need to go through. So I will not go through it in details. I think that organizers will send you my presentation. So this is kind of a roadmap, for the organizers of the issue can go through and help to process to get the loan stock. The main point that I should say, you should get the satisfaction of the process is because when you start working with the loan stock or complicated financial tools, you need to do this not just because you need to do this, but you need to tend or eager to do something in the future. So we checked it in practice. We have additional subsidies. And all these cases are checked. We have 2 subsidies from the growing sector. So the money goes from the compensation expenses on the stock loans up to 2% and not more than 1.5 million rubles. And compensation of the expenditures on the big loan income, 70%. So you can even compensate on 10%. I tell to everyone that you should not rely on. So I'm honest, actually, that we're speaking about real money, and you don't have to think that the stock loans are something simple to get. If you succeed in this, that's great. If you're not, it's absolutely normal because you have pretty serious requirements for the company to get the stock loan. How much does it cost? To be honest, with the interest rate of 16%, all the issues, they stopped at work. And to be honest, the issuer are waiting for their interest rate to decrease. If the interest rate of 10-11%, so it's sensible to consider for medium businesses up to 2 billion rubles. And the deadline of the application is 3 years. Taking into account all commissions, the rate will be 18.4%. If you have benefits that you've seen before on the slide, and then you will decrease it up to 13%. So these are numbers. And I would also like to finish my presentation. So our forum, our business week is called The Day After Tomorrow, and I would like to give you a very wisdom. Once upon a time, I had a dinner with a very smart top manager of the federal companies, and he asked me, Georgi, what do you think? Who do you think we should communicate and cooperate with to live peacefully in the future? And I was like thinking maybe Vladimir Putin, and the question was like a very tricky question. He said, no, to live peacefully tomorrow, we need to cooperate today with ourselves from yesterday, from tomorrow. Because if you are so please cooperate with yourself, with you from the day after tomorrow, and everything will be great. These are my contacts on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgi. I've seen one 100 million and 22%. Yeah, sorry, it was 100 million and 22% is the first issue after the beginning of special military operation, when it was in May 2022 when the our stock exchange companies started to work as they needed money. So, and we shouldn't forget about offers or amortizations. There are some special coupons with the flowing unfixed interest rate, which is not tied to anything. So when the key interest rate increases, you pay more, and when it decreases, you pay less, and it all can be predicted. So yeah, probably 22% that we were talking about, that's quite a lot, but it's fine. So there were some company with good marginality, but they wanted these figures. So they bought 40% for themselves, and they issued all those documents because they wanted to get those benefits, those perks. So none of our issues had a goal to get money itself. That was quite surprising. And were they trying to market on just broad market? Yeah, something like that. Thanks a lot for your speech. And we're about to have equally fascinating interests. The Consumers Corporation Monogametra, which is quite interesting as well. We'd like to hear your expert positions. We give you the floor. Thank you. Hello. Can we turn on the presentation? And how much time do I have? We've already exceeded the time limit, so we've got to speed up. My name is Stanislav, and I have my partner Kirill. What we did, we've created an inverted commas, this something like closed-end fund, but differently, based on consumers cooperation, and you can enter our fund with the income of 500,000 rubles and with guarantee income of 12% every year. But we're not going to talk about any income, but about our company itself. So this is us and our construction site, what we're doing. We've been working with commercial real estate for a long time. We have our agent, Nogometov Roy, a cafe, Monkey Grinder, for example. So how is our fund working? We've described that in 3 steps. First, we formulate the documents with our fund, who are the proprietors of our real estate. Every proprietor can sign the document and enter the share payment and become the partner. Then the third step is that you get the monthly benefit from the very first monthly income. So where are those persons paid? So we have a couple of real estates which are rented in Office City, and there is a monthly income. So we've taken that monthly income and multiply that 100. That's the flow that we get, and the income that we get, we distribute that between all shareholders here. So if we're talking about the price of the site, if it's about 300,000, for example, if it's price, so we don't increase it, and we share that between all shareholders. So it means that the site is cheaper in our fund, and there are not any risks, and the proprietors can get those money back, and even with some percent. We did that intentionally. So in the picture you see our bakery in top 10 of those who sell. So we estimate that fund on 45 million rubles, and the renting flows about 450 millions. So we're not taking any additional payment. Those who manage to enter on time, those participate. Here is also another bakery, that's functioning. We buy such places with which are under evaluated, or they have some potential, and we change its appearance. We do it up so they become more valuable, especially if we select landlords better. Great landlords. So the price of such places increase. Just different sites that I'm talking about. So here it was just some construction site, but we redeveloped that and it became even better. So we had this flat that was like an architectural memorial, and we had been negotiating for about 5 years, and finally we signed the agreement, and we changed the appearance of this place, and we sold it. We tried to get some money from bank, and for the on the market, such place cost about 17 million, but the bank was ready to give us about 5 million only. So it's quite sad when bank estimates only 30% of the market price. So we finally we sold it for 17 million, but we sold it anyway, and we moved to another project. So and then after that we started thinking how to avoid selling a project. Of course we would like to get about almost 100% of market price while renting, and we saw some. We considered different funds, and then we selected this Consumers Cooperation Fund. And where should we direct money? Like, we don't have to pay exceeding price when we cooperate with different landlords or something like that. The price can raise, or people can change their mood, or if the proprietors change. So to secure our business and to avoid losing the control over our projects, and being able to control a really great location, which will be all up to date, we created this cooperation, and then we direct transfer money received from one project to another to improve that location. So, and we create this space for life and business, and well, for example, in some places there are new paths convenient for people to walk there, or some additional windows or any other features that improve the appearance and convenience for other people. So here is this building. Nowadays we can't see this building. It's a regional view that is shown in the picture, and now it's redone, and we take such constructions which are not available for using, and so it used to be like cost about 34,000 rubles, but then when we finish the work on it, it's going to cost about 1.5 million rubles. So, and what else we do? There are some places which are not appropriate for living, and we turn them back into living place, and we create two-level flats, for example, like in St. Petersburg. We can break big spaces into smaller spaces, separate them, and sell them later. And then money circulates and gets back to our fund of real estate. So unfortunately, we don't have enough time. We already exceeded all time limits. So anyway, thanks a lot. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yelazhev, the head of the Agency of Financial Solutions, REFI. Good afternoon. I will be brief. Our company specializes in attracting business financing, but we face this question, where should our clients invest the money which are left free in their accounts? And when they ask us why we don't use any standard bank procedures, we say that those people, our clients, are not really satisfied with the conditions. And when they have those deposits, they cannot extract money from them. So here we're talking about small and medium business. So the problem is that that sometimes not all the orders are fulfilled, and the services that overnight can do cannot be fulfilled. So they are looking for different solutions, resources to invest money in. So they, if not having found any solutions in banks, they go on the streets and meddling with some dark cryptocurrencies and so on. And there are a couple of companies that lost their money, about dozens of millions, because they invested into cryptocurrency and everything that's connected with that. So recently, I've talked to one of such proprietors who have about 20 million rubles left in their accounts. And I suggested to consider investment in the fund Mnogometro that was told about previously, and the interest rate exceeds the overnight rate about twice. So my call is pretty simple. Why is business not placed in traditional banks? They think that it's too much, if banks want to be closer to banks, they should be simpler. They should not be that stiff or inflexible, as we see that bank image nowadays. So, here, that Mnogometro fund looks like normal, common people, so people go to them. Thanks a lot.
We have an inquiry actually on conducting some forums with the cooperatives, and we had the case where they can use these cooperative possibilities, and they both use the banking services and this structure that I mentioned, and work successfully. So I've just listened to Georgi, and I understood that I would like to know more about obligations, and I will speak to you later, I think. So we have one more speaker who is online. Denis Vasilyevich, can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. All right. the general director of Invest company. So we're kind of limited in time. So I've listened to very interesting speeches, and I'm working in a real sector. I'm working with the enterprises and the investors and banks, and I know the needs of these parties. So I would like just very shortly talk about the real estate and closed-end funds, because this is the key mechanism to structurize, to get the opportunities while we are even changing the investors. So the company gets the right to use the funds and then get the the profit in the future. This is an indirect income that is very different from other types of profit. So this real estate sector cannot replace the volume of other sectors, and the advantage of this sector is the low profit. So if we speak about warehouses, for example, and the commercial real estate, they are pretty competitive. We can also compare with the dividends rates. So, for example, the biggest one from MTS, but this is less than banking account. We have the projects of 30-40%. But in that cases, they have a very high risk. And if we speak about these mechanisms and risks, this is something that you can be, sure and save the opportunity to be protected on some serious active and get low risks assets. So I should mention that more than 20,000 companies cannot be inherited. So the question is very actual. So I would like to make the discussion with the colleagues. So I see that you are pretty interested. So this mechanism is really popular with the investor. So the investor should, together with the other tools, it's a pretty competitive, and in some cases it's much better to use with the companies. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have Dmitry Kovalyov. I'm giving the floor to you. Hello, my dear colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a detailed closed-end funds. I cannot add anything, I would say. I would just give you some remarks about this. Vladislav told us that some of the closed PIVs get the profits, as we are having tax preferences and discounts with the right limitation up to 3 years. If we speak about 25 years and we were owner of this PIV and we pay 3 million rubles per year, and at the end of 25-year period we get up to 60 million rubles profit. This is just an addition for you. And Georgi also said that they published that they gave 100 million rubles with that 20% interest rate. I have just a case. We have the company who works in the Republic of Bashkortostan, but it's well known in Russia. So the first interesting rate was in this company to 16%. The second was 14%, and the last was 11.6%. When the company is recommended among the customers, and you pay taxes on time, and you work with the customers, and people can trust you. So the interest rate in this case get lower. The second point, the third issue combined two issues, and they had the third one with the lower rate. I also heard that with the medium and small businesses cannot, put money on a short period of time to banks. And while we have this opportunity, you can come to us. We have special mechanism. We have the interest rate of 14% every day. If you need some money, you can just get all the money. There are no any problems. We have a solution. And today we talked a lot about the economical situation, about high interest rate, but nobody recalled that we have very high rates on the currency market. And I know that some authorities and companies are fighting with the president to decrease the currency, and nobody said about our enterprises, like medium and small businesses that are working very actively with China. I should say, from my experience, we have the topic about the term about hedging of the risks, and so for the exporter, it's very important to prevent some risks from currency changes. So hedging is a very good tool to do that. If the importer has to pay for the rights to own this tool, they have to pay 10% of interest rate. So the exporter in this case will get some money from this. So we have a lot of tools that we can provide to the medium and small businesses, and even can be used by big businesses, and usually they do by Moscow stock company. So thank you very much, my friends. I think that all the speakers finished with their speeches. Maybe we can discuss some questions. My friends, I think, what about the legal form, legislative form, and the risks of your cooperative activity? So, for example, you bought real estate. What next? There can be anything that can happen to you. What about the profit of risks? Can you just comment on that? Yes, of course, there is a risk, because if it happens, for example, so the real estate is owned by the cooperative unity. They have the special, agreement acts, agreed with the government. So basically, the main point is to make the right agreement to work as per law. So what we did the following. So we actually did the following. Nobody, stole our real estate, and on the other hand, we've got some profit from this. My recommendation is not to create the situation when you cannot pay, for example, because there are some risk, to get to do some illegal acts, and nobody wants, to act illegally. So the only thing that we are explaining to people, that we're not looking at that point of view, we are not creating these risks, and in some cases we just direct them to the. There are no risks. Actually, there is a real estate that it is built by 20% higher than it was started before. And with the processes, the price goes even higher. if we do something, illegal, we have a very big risks and a reputation, of course, reputational questions. Where do you accumulate your money? We're accumulating them in other objects and real estates. We're constructing them and then we sell them. So we buy, improve it, and sell it. So we get the money from this, and then we use them in other real estates. So the project that we're doing gives from 50 up to 100% interest rate per annum. So within these market changes, volatility changes in the market, can we just speak about from this point of view? So what about if we speak about the closed-end fund with the taxes, real estate, it's pretty simple. What's your position, Guzel? You spoke about it much more. Can you just comment on this? Can you just take the microphone? So the personal closed-end fund can include everything that you would like to have. It's created to protect, it defends your, interest and to inherit it in the future. The most popular structure of closed-end funds is this structure which is dealt with the real estate. For example, it's a well-known company we worked with. We enter to this company with a great discount with the price of 14% from the price of the constructor, and then we pack this closed-end fund, and we are getting there as the great investor. Now we are attracting some profits, some money. So our investor, then we can get the real estate from 14% in a negative case and 17%. This is a positive condition. They have an option to finish early if they are not satisfied with the result. They can exit. They can exit the plane. And if the investor is not satisfied, they cannot, buy the share. The real estate is now one of the most pathfinder in this mechanism. So you asked about the volatility. It's how can we avoid volatility with the closed-end funds? I said that. So our investor looks where it's more expensive, to sell in a more expensive price and buy in a cheaper price. So we consider the closed-end fund as a long-term investments, and we're not speculants. But inside the closed-end fund, unfair player. So we can use this volatility inside the closed-end fund and at the same time to protect your own package of. It's not a well-known tool that nowadays will be actively developing, and we claimed and we inquired somehow for this popularity. And we can apply this tool when the negotiation stage itself includes the lawyers and other parties and the representatives of our companies. Takes for a long time, and the skeptical opinions that we have just disappears when we speak about closed-end funds. And we just have negotiations this week, and I'm honest, I was just against about everything that the clients will have nothing. And there was a really big real estate. And when she heard about this tool, she said, yeah, just come and let's start. I think that is a very sensible tool, but you need to be very responsible and serious to pack these funds. So all the 52 funds, they are different, but as I said, it's a very sensible and right tool that will be developing and it will be changing. And to work it properly, we need to have some legal changes. We can put some changes in a banking work, but the tool is amazing. I cannot answer this question. 2 cases and companies worked out, and so we take the share funds, and if they get 62% of closed-end funds, that you can understand for 5 years, you can understand that the interest rate is 12%. But in the medium interest rate per annum is 14. So we can just look through the funds and analyze their activity. Yeah, we should go to the managing company. So just to sum it up, I can finish. So I have a question. So our topic of the International Business Week slogan is the day after tomorrow. What are the perspectives from the point of view of partners who can we cooperate? The day after tomorrow, we will have something that we have today. The tools that we have today will exist, and I'm sure that we will have something new. I'm sure that the sector of digital investments will be developing in the future. And I'm sure that there will be some new tools, and I'm sure that they will be more transparent and facilitated. And the inquiries are getting now, and I'm sure that in some time, we will get new tools. So the aim is, the task of the closed-end funds is to make it strong, the sector of taxing, and also create a very comfortable and convenient of enterprise or real estate investor to find each other, and in the convenient conditions to work together. So that's why the investor businesses exist. Thank you very much, my colleagues. I think we can finish. Thanks a lot for the speakers and for the participants and for the audience. Indeed, I think we should be very careful with choosing the partners and works. Thank you.